Welcome back, everyone, to the GGBL. Trade Day is upon us for season number 7, season 2029. It's pretty crazy how far we've gotten in this league, but I'm excited for this trade day because it's going to work a little bit different. I posted this in the Discord for those of you guys that are following along in there, but just a little recap of what we talked about. I'm actually going to present to you the teams that I think really fit with this player, the players that are up for being traded. You guys in the trade voting form will then pick the teams you think best needs that player. So really it's going to ultimately come down to no matter what, there's no more yes, no trade votings where no is going to mean that the player stays with their team, they're not getting moved, or you're just only offering up one team for that guy to go to, right? So really there's going to be multiple teams in the mix, in the running for said player, and then you guys have the power to determine where that guy's going to go. The actual trades are going to be determined by me. So I'm going to be at the helm, if you will, in charge of coming up with what the package is going to be for the team that you voted for. So let's explain this inside the Google form. All right, guys, so here on the form, this will be linked inside the video description and the pinned comment, also posted in Discord for you. But basically, what you need to do is you just need to go through it and you need to look at each trade, offer, or proposal and say, you know what? I think that Ariano should go to Carolina, right? And so whatever the percentage breakdown of this is for these 4 teams, whoever has the highest percentage of this breakdown is going to win the trade rights to go get George Ariano. Same thing here with Richmond. They trade Chris Addison to the Breeze, Nuggets, Emeralds, or Swing. Same thing with Matt Justice, except he's got a lot more options because we also have a better first baseman in Ariano than Matt Justice. So in the sense where, let's say, for example, so we know that the Reapers, the Blue Sox, Revolution, and Nuggets, all 4 of those teams need a first baseman, right? But there's a potential that Ariano goes to one of these teams and Matt Justice is therefore not going to be able to go to one of those 4 teams. I still put some of those teams here for his board. So you can see Reapers, Blue Sox, and Nuggets. Those 3 teams are still up on Justice's board, still up on Ariano's board. So how this is going to work is say that Ariano goes to the Reapers. You guys voted on that, and Justice goes to the Reapers. So there's a tie. So you guys think that the Reapers need a first baseman pretty badly, but if there's a tie, it's going to go to the better player. The better overall player is going to head here to the Reapers, and that would, in a sense, be George Ariano. So then how do you determine where Matt Justice goes? The second highest team percentage will then get Matt Justice. So let's say that that's Carolina. Let's say Iowa had like 32% vote. Carolina had 28 or something, right? He would go to Carolina because that's the next highest percentage. Same thing here with all the rest of the trade offers, and that's just how that's going to work. So let's talk about the guys up on the board here. Again, we've seen some of these guys here: Ariano, Addison, Justice, Raynell, Jimbo Crawford, Cody Davis is a closing pitcher. Boston Revolution posted inside the Discord about this. The Revolution are sick and tired of KAJ's attitude. He's been kind of out there. He hasn't really been invested into the playoff run. They need a little bit more out of him. They need more production, and they're not getting it. So if the Revolution acquire Matt Justice, or if they acquire George Ariano, then therefore KAJ gets traded. So there's a little bit of like maybe an extra little push there for you guys to vote for Boston acquiring one of those first basemen. So if that happens, KAJ gets moved on from, and then you guys get to vote on. In that scenario, where does he go? And honestly, he's going into these other organizations that are not doing very well. Colorado, maybe he gets his offense going again here in the high altitude. Minnesota, he can wallow away in Minnesota, or even LA. Maybe the personality suits him. So maybe these 3 options are better for him. So again, this is kind of an if statement, right? If Boston acquires Justice or Ariano, then that means there's really no place for KAJ any longer, and then he gets moved. So a little extra motivation. If you guys want to create some storylines there, we can go that route. But if it doesn't, then this just becomes null and he's not getting moved. So St. Louis, they're going to trade Cody Finney. They've been in last place. They haven't really done too much. He's 30 years old. He's got basically one more season left on contract. So where's he going to go? He's going to go to a team that needs pitching. They've got a couple 90s in their midst with their overall ratings, but they could add another guy like Cody Finney into the mix. Left-hander, be a nice addition there for him. And then Miami trades away catcher PJ Sparbory to teams that need a catcher. Nashville, namely, they've got like a guy that's an 80 overall right now starting. The Revolution are in need of that as well, and the Mighty Beavers. So without further ado, let's go take a look at those players and see if any of those teams make sense for the trades. So I kind of alluded to this in the very beginning that Ariano needs to leave. He's 33 years old. He's got two young guys barreling down behind him, breathing down his neck. And some teams that kind of make sense here would be Iowa at first base. They currently have Justy Jeffrey here, and then Bo Callaway benching it up right behind Justy Jeffrey. However, so the thing with Justy Jeffrey is he's a left-handed throw. He can move out there to left field. He can also DH, or if Ariano wants to DH, that's also an option. But if then we look at the outfield situation for them, they've got Hernandez, Cruz, Haas. They've got good players like McMahon. Probably Gene Bass is the guy that gets called down after acquiring Ariano. And then they got Ferrari out there in right field. But Ferrari can also play in the infield, which is kind of more of his natural position anyway. So second, third, and shortstop. So it seems like a really good move for Iowa. You could put Ferrari at short. That opens up an extra outfield spot. You can put him at third base as well. Clark Sheely's on his way, on his ascent as well. And then second base. So there's a lot of options for Giuseppe Ferrari to add himself into the infield mix. But again, he does have that outfield primary position that you can kind of move some things around, move and shake with Iowa. Another team here that could possibly acquire George Ariano would be Boston. And again, the KAJ drama, the saga here, 9 home runs. He's 28 years old and he's seeing a ton of regression. So his attitude is killing him. So if KAJ gets moved on from, I mean, it leaves an open spot. So Boston is kind of that mystery team where George Ariano kind of makes sense. You do still have Sheldon Minoso here. He does not have a secondary position, so he probably would have to DH or be the first baseman. And again, Ariano can even play outfield too, so that's also an option. But it looks like Boston is definitely in need of a big-time first baseman. Sticking here at the AL, we've got the Las Vegas Nuggets, who, of course, they're really light on number of first basemen here organizationally. Robert Thacker can play right field. Ariano would be a good mix for them. Right here at the first base spot, again, you can DH one of those guys, play him at first. It's, again, another move for Wisconsin. It's another move for Los Angeles and Vegas where it just kind of opens up LA's first base competition, and then it adds to the competition here for Vegas. So it actually is a pretty good trade for both squads. Now, sticking here with the NL East, or heading out to the NL East, you got kind of a weird spot here with Carolina. They haven't made the playoffs in a few seasons, so they really want to make a push. They're also in need of George Ariano. Like we see Henry Castilla's been playing very, very well. He's a catcher, secondary position. Mitchell Quick's got double digits in home runs, but he's only a first baseman. Still some pretty solid players, plus you got the custom player Abraham Price on the come up there. So it's a little crowded, but you could see kind of how this would work. You acquire a guy like Ariano, it immediately helps your offense and helps you push to the postseason. Now, sticking with the NL East, you got the Richmond Good Boys, again with Chris Addison playing all 3 outfield spots. Primary catcher, he does have a lot of versatility. But some teams that we are considering would be the Breeze, the Nuggets, Emeralds, and Swing. So let's take a look at the Chicago Breeze here real quick, because if we look at what they've got working for them, they got Chucky Morton's their primary catcher. He's a lot better defensively than Chris Addison. But when Chicago's looking to make this postseason push, it seems like they need a little bit extra outfield depth. You got Chiatellis here as a primary left fielder. They don't have a center fielder, and they don't have an outfielder in the right field spot. So they really need some help here. Bradford Potts has been pretty solid. 28 years old, 14 bombs, but he's hitting 220. So, looking at center, right field, maybe you put Chiatellis out there in right field. You get Santana to can play a little bit too. It just makes sense for Chicago to acquire a good, proven hitter. He's got some versatility as well when you do need to sit Chucky Morton down for a little extra day rest. Chicago makes sense. Now, what about for Las Vegas? Here's the caveat here. So if Las Vegas acquires George Ariano, they cannot acquire Chris Addison. So in the Chris Addison trade, it would then go to the second highest percentage, if that makes sense, guys. So again, if Las Vegas acquires Ariano, the higher overall player, Addison cannot go to Las Vegas as well. So one team cannot get two players. So there's a process involved into that. But really, he would not be catching here. If Chris Addison goes to Vegas, he would not be catching. You got Smudge Murphy, you've got Aitken in here as well, but he would probably be playing outfield. And again, it's kind of crowded there. So Katz, Stacy, Conrad is hitting well, hitting 300, but he probably would shift over there to right field, taking over Alex Franco's spot. And they've got a ton of outfielders up on their team right now. So, Vegas makes some sense here too. They can call some of these guys down. They don't really need them. But that would really shore up some of the depth. They could call up some pitchers here as well. Kind of make some extra room for some infielders that might not be giving a chance, right? You look at like second base. Well, they got Warren, Sly Kelly. Maybe second base. William Koo should probably be up, right? He's an 83, like the 95 vision. So it makes sense for Vegas to go out and try to acquire Chris Addison. So what about the Emeralds now? Why did I put the Emeralds up there? Well, when we look at their catching situation, pretty solid here. Gabriel Oakes has been playing well. Not a lot of contact, a lot of power, but Richie Williamson, kind of an all-around catcher. But again, probably outfield, potentially, for Chris Addison. You got Tora, Kobayashi, Miller would probably take a back seat, and then you got William Murphy. So where does Chris Addison fit into this? Well, it seems like he would just be joining a really good club. He would be able to play in some spots in the outfield. We'll give some guys some rest, but mostly it looks like he would end up being the backup catcher and maybe a DH guy. Maybe, again, you find another player here from the outfield that could play a little bit more DH. Because you got Tora, not as good defensively. So maybe Tora becomes your DH and Chris Addison becomes your left fielder. Because now you got Kobayashi in center, you got Murphy in right, Addison in left. It kind of makes sense there for Seattle. Last team here on the board for Chris Addison would be the New Orleans Swing. And I think for them it makes a lot of sense because we just look at their catching. So they got LeVar Rowe, Parveen Mira, nice 1-2 punch right there. But their outfield is pretty loaded right now with France. Willie's hitting 353. He's going nuts. You got Karan. You got Scruggs and Magana, who's not even called up. He's got 19 bombs in AAA. So, I mean, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to sell, I think, for me, why he would go to New Orleans. But I think that for them, any extra offense that they could possibly get is definitely going to help them. So, and then he's got the ties to Ricky Holberman. So you could have two former good boys kind of giving that championship pedigree a little bit to help them out. Meanwhile, look at Ricky Holberman's numbers here. Look at all that regression. Ricky, no. All right, so Matt Justice is your next player up on the board. I'm not going to cover every team because we just kind of we already looked at the Blue Sox, the Nuggets, the Reapers, and the Revolution. We've already looked at 4 of those teams at first base. So let's take a look now at the Mighty Beavers, the Heat, and the Good Boys. So why do those teams make sense? Well, let's go to the Good Boys first because we're going to talk about them a little bit more. You can see Andrew Doby's a 78C. You got Anthony Ridley, who doesn't look like he's going to really do too much. He's a 72C. You got Rondell Oakley, who's 39 years old. So really what this is doing is anticipating Cabral and Oakley going bye-bye or retiring eventually. So it makes sense for the Good Boys to acquire a guy that's not I would say prime. Justice has had some struggles, but it gives a nice option there for Andrew Doby to potentially get some days off, right? I mean, he's a guy that's going to play almost every day. In Richmond last year in our World Series, Gold Series run, I should say, only 78 games played, so he kind of took a back seat there to Holberman and Benny Blanco. That little 1-2 punch there just adds an extra bat, and maybe we can help Wisconsin out with some of our prospects. Now for the Heat, let's take a look at the Heat real quick at first base. I'm going the wrong way. Let's go to the Heat, first base. So they got Villalobos, really not too much there, just really looking for depth piece, and that's really what Matt Justice would provide. You got Villalobos hitting right-handed, Taylor's hitting switch. So another right-handed hitter with Matt Justice just gives them more depth. And then for the Mighty Beavers, why do they need Matt Justice? Well, You just look at what they've got going on too. A lot of older first basemen. O'Neill's their guy. He's 85, got a lot of power against left-handers, but it would make sense for Vancouver just to acquire another bat that they could use in their playoff push. So that's Matt Justice. Now, what about the Copperheads with Baldrick Raynell? So the thing with Houston is they've got so much talent in the outfield. Like, you just look at Mitre, Rico, Raynell, Tyron Rex, Cabrera's an 81. You got Brandon over there as an 81. They're a pretty talented group. But Raynell's getting tired of the lack of success within the Houston Copperheads organization. They made a push to go get Tyron Rex, and it still didn't work. So whatever they're doing in Houston, it's not lining up. And the fact that he's 24 years old and he wants out, I mean, he's got to produce a little bit more. Like, if he's going to want to talk the talk, he's got to produce just a little bit more. The home runs are nice, but the batting average and the OBP is pretty bad. So he's got to find a team that makes sense for him. Probably, like he said, he's looking for a playoff team. I'm thinking Michigan, Atlanta, Carolina, or Chicago. And again, we already know Chicago's outfield situation because Chris Addison's a good guy that would fit there. Carolina, let's take a look at what Carolina's bringing to the table here with their outfield spots. They've got Porter Pittman, David Gonzalez. Why is he in AAA? Why is David Gonzalez in AAA? What? We're just going to chalk that up to an injury, guys. Why in the world is he not in the big leagues? Dude, they would be so much better right now. What happened? Oh my God. The CPU roster... Roster control? Hold on a second here. Roster control? No, it's all manual. Wow. Okay, well, we're going to chalk that up to an injury. David Gonzalez had injuries. He's hitting .330. Oh my God, dude, that's such an oversight. Okay, anyway, so yeah, Carolina, they would be a lot better with getting a guy like Baldrick Raynell into the mix. You got Castro here, Pittman, and Gonzalez. You add in another guy like that, makes perfect sense. Now, what about to Atlanta? The Sting. You got Mason Borromeo, another guy, 84 overall. Ouch. Yeah, like Ray Compton shouldn't even be up here. You got Rosario, Clifford Durham's batting really well, 307. You got Mason Borromeo. Again, he would fit really nicely, allowing them to get some more power in that mix. Now, what about Michigan? And we already looked at Chicago. So for Michigan, it seems like the rich are going to get richer if Raynell goes to Michigan, but you've got right now Novoa. Humberto's actually seeing some regression, which is kind of crazy to see at 28 years old. So if you're reading the tea leaves here, maybe potentially Raynell's the guy that kind of takes over Alex Humberto's spot eventually. And then you've also got Brian Puckett, who's doing well with 10 homers, 259. But maybe is he the answer? I don't know. He's still got that A potential. But they could use another guy. They could use another big bat in this lineup to help them have some more power. So that's your trade offers for Baldrick Raynell. Let me know what you guys think in the voting form. Now, what about Wisconsin? Again, another trade. And they're looking to move on from Jimbo Crawford. And they don't really want to do this, but Jimbo wants out. He's also sick and tired of the losing. And this guy is a very, very good player. You look at the offensive numbers there, guys. Like 245. I think the power is good, but the contact, I don't know what's going on with the contact. 83, 88 contact, but he's hitting 245. So there's still some room for growth there for Jimbo Crawford. But I look at him in his situation. The NL West really wants his services. You take a look at what these teams are rocking here at third base. You could go out there to Seattle. You could go out there to Vancouver, which would put Akira out there in the outfield because he can also play out there, left field, center field, right field. And then you look at LA, they're out of it. San Diego could possibly acquire Jimbo Crawford. It might make some sense here. You could put Sturridge at first. Not really, I guess, because you got Vandenboom, you got Kane. So really it's just more of a DH situation there. Vandenboom should be up, right? He's hitting 20 home runs. Like, this is now the time, guys. This is the time. You've gotten some guys some at-bats. Even though he's an 88, he's seeing progression in his overall rating. So again, Vandenboom's kind of been the casualty of doing mass sim, but he's definitely going to get the call up. But yeah, there's some shifting and moving around that you could do here. Glass probably going to get the call down, honestly. 8 at-bats through the entire year. Trade him for Nick Vandenboom, right? Swap those guys. And then, of course, put Sturridge out there in at the DH spot. So that could work. That could work. Now, what about the Grizzlies? So they're not really out of it either. They're 5.5 games out. They're 1 game above 500. They're kind of still wanting to go for it. Timothy Pierce, look at San Francisco. He's starting to see a lot of regression too. And this is one of the guys that has played really well throughout his career. Still hanging on there, man. Still hanging on. But again, if you're reading the writing on the wall, if you're Timothy Pierce, you're not going to last very much longer. They've already got first base figured out with Trey Mashburn and Warlock and Moreno. So maybe Jimbo Crawford fits really well here with San Francisco Grizzlies. Now taking a look here at Pittsburgh, you got Cody Davis, 32-year-old closer. They've got some younger guys in the wings. A lot of high potentials with those closers, but really Cody Davis kind of fits anywhere, so I'm not really going to show you guys the swing, the Blue Sox, the Sting, the Reapers. Like this, it doesn't really change anything. Everybody needs a high-end closer, but it seems like Pittsburgh's got the ability to move on from this older guy, right? A potential 32, like how much more can he actually progress? So any team that needs a closer, pretty much anybody would really like that. Those 4 teams on the board make a lot of sense there. And of course, we talked about KAJ, possibly could go to LA, Colorado, or Minnesota. So really nothing else to talk about there. And then you've got St. Louis. So we've talked about St. Louis a couple of seasons ago, how good that their pitching was, right? Their depth with pitching. And it's pretty stacked. It's just loaded. So Cody Finney is not necessarily a guy that they want to get rid of either, but he's only been a losing pitcher 2 times in his entire career. One being this year, and the second being 2 years ago in 2027. Had his highest ERA he's ever had as a GGBL pro at 4.59. So they're starting to look at this like maybe, he had a bounce back year in 2028. Now we're in this season and he's starting to regress a little bit again. We've got 2 more seasons left with him, and it might be time to move on because we still have some guys here that we can lean in on, like Cesar Paniagua is ready to take the next step as the ace, right? Maybe it makes room for him to be able to compete against the top tier level talent on the other side of the mound versus Cody Finney kind of blocking that, right? It, of course, does help Cesar Paniagua's numbers when he's the number 2 guy because, again, you're going up against the number 2 guy. There's more chances for getting wins in that sense, but, he's still got some things to work on. So you look at Finney, where does he fit? You could look at San Diego, you could look at Vancouver, you could look at Washington. A lot of teams, of course, would love to have a 90 overall pitcher, but when I'm looking at playoff ready teams that would love to add a guy like that, you could push Warren down to the 4. You could put Finney in as the 3. That's only going to bolster Vancouver. You look at San Diego, he would immediately become their ace. You got Estrella, who's 4-11 with a 7.02 ERA. He pitched really well on opening day, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but definitely get him out of the rotation. Move him down to like the 4th guy, right? Even Gatsby Grimm's pitching well. So you add a Cody Finney, a left-hander, into this mix. I don't think they have a left-hander in this mix. You got Madison, Quiros. That's it. Gatsby Grimm and Levi Knapp. Everybody else in this 5-man rotation are right-handers except for Fernando Quiros. So you add in a guy like that, that immediately helps you out. And then you look at Washington. They've got Nolan Mitchell, Finger, Tillman, Clement, Peterson, of course. And again, kind of the same situation as Vancouver. You get a Cody Finney. Now Nolan Mitchell doesn't have to be your number 2 guy. He can be your number 3 guy. You can go left, left, right. Or you can stick with it and go left, right, left with Cody Finney. So 3 teams that make a lot of sense. But again, I mean, anybody, you chalk it up. Like New York could use Cody Finney. You know, Michigan could use Cody Finney. I mean, anybody could use him. Even though Michigan is just absolutely stacked, like they've got a bunch of 90s and high 80s, who wouldn't want a Cody Finney, right? But I'm looking at it mostly like who needs him the most, and I'm thinking it's Washington, San Diego, and Vancouver. And then our last trade on the board, we've got Miami moving on from PJ Sparbory. Again, not necessarily a trade that they would want to do, but they're looking at the production. They're looking at what they could possibly get out of a guy like this. Is it going to flatline? And I think it's probably going to. You're going to see some more regression, especially with catchers. MLB service time at 6 years. Once that gets into 7 and 8s, you're going to start seeing some regression, especially with his age at 30. We're already starting to see it with his overall rating going down. So it makes sense that maybe Miami moves on. Maybe they look to acquire a catcher through free agency next season. But they're not in the playoff hunt. Makes a lot of sense to move on. But really, I'm only looking at teams that really need a catcher or at least a backup, maybe a potential DH guy. And you look at Nashville, like they've got this Ken Campos guy. Hasn't been called up. But you got Chip Newell, who's doing really well, 286. You got Byler as a 72. It just maybe makes more sense to put Chip Newell as a DH, get Sparbory to be your primary catcher. They need another bat. They need another good defender like that. That would definitely help Nashville in their playoff chase. And then again, Vancouver pops up one more time on this trade form because they're just trying to get better. You look at Sparbory, like he could be the backup to Trumbull, and Trumbull could even move to second base or even DH. You got Peanuts McLovin, Sexton, Skinner probably shouldn't be on the team at all. Like, you know, his stealing and speed's nice, but, you know, there's just options there. So we're going to put Vancouver on the board for him, for Sparbory, and that's going to do it, guys, for the trade day voting propositions. So let me know in the form, vote it up, and we'll go from there. But again, guys, I'm going to be doing all the trades. I'm going to be the one actually putting all those trade packages together. Those are not going to be voted on. So whatever team you vote for, so again, say George Ariano goes to Iowa, I'm going to develop a trade package for Iowa to trade away some of these players that you're not going to have a say in. It could probably be Clark Shealy. Probably. That's my guy. I'd probably move him out to LA. I'll take the hit. I'll go out to Los Angeles. I'll be a Knight. But, you know, you got to look at it from the perspective of LA. Like, they're trading away a former MVP. You got to get something to get something if you're Iowa. So you probably would have to deal Clark Shealy and Damian Hannibal. You probably trade away some of your future for getting a guy like that because your team has not had a lot of success. So I'll put all those results up on the Friday video. It's going to be an upload. It's not going to be a live stream. I'm actually going into a wedding on Friday, so that's not going to work. So live stream's not happening. It'll be a regular video. I'll show you guys all the trade results. And then, of course, I will go ahead and sim all the way to about maybe mid-September. And then we'll take a little look at the standings. We'll look at the playoff chases. And then we'll do a little live stream at a later date. So guys, that's it. Again, vote in that trade form, and I'll keep you guys updated on how things are shaking out. As always, thank you so much for watching, and peace.